his laugh, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight, fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance, Buffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No sound bites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in the Bronx, New York. It is August 31st. It is currently, I believe, about a minute, maybe 2 minutes after 1 p.m. So we're right on time. Now, I know some people say, but Mike, you're early. You don't usually go on until 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Why are you on so early? Well, two reasons for that. One, it's because Labor Day. Tomorrow is the Labor Day holiday. Everyone will be off, and I will be, well, I'm actually going to be working, but a lot of people will be off. And because of that, there were a couple of political events this weekend. One of those events happened to be is today at 4 p.m. And so I will be going over to Arthur Avenue in the Bronx to attend that event at 4 p.m. I may be going live covering that event. It's going to be with Larry Sharp, who is a friend of mine, and also Dion Powell, who's with the Conservative Party in the Bronx, and I know him. I've interviewed him before. So that I may be going live with that. Haven't quite figured it out. But you'll see. I will have coverage of that event either way. So it's the holiday and covering the event. And I said, well, I could take a holiday. I could take a day off myself. But I always do this program, whether it's a holiday or not. I'm always here for you. So I said, nope, I'm not going to take a day off. I'm going to be here and I'm going to speak with you guys. So I'll do it a little bit early. So there you go. And if you happen to be in the Bronx and you can get over to Arthur Avenue, Yop City, I will be happy to see you there, along with Larry Sharp and also Dion Powell of the Conservative Party. We'll be happy to talk with you, each and every one of us. So that's why I'm doing this early. Now, for those who are new to the channel and aren't familiar, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. normally, we get out live around the world to reach out and speak with you about the issues that are affecting America, how America is affecting the rest of the world, how we are dealing with the issues that affect each and every one of us. Because the First Amendment isn't just an American principle. This is something that affects everyone. You have a right to speak up about the leadership and the direction of your country, whichever country it may be. Now, the political leaders, the nation, the internet overlords might not like that, but I don't care. This is your right, and on this channel, we will always respect that. So whether you agree or disagree, we welcome you to be part of our audience, whether it's for 5 minutes or for 5 hours. We appreciate each and every one of you and everything you have to say about the politics affecting us all. That being said, we do long form political commentary, and that's another thing that's important. A lot of people don't realize that. And this is an interaction every Sunday where we're talking with you and we're looking forward to seeing your comments in chat. And you can super chat, you can rumble rant. It all helps a lot, especially now that there are many changes happening because of YouTube. So, if you will, please take the opportunity to, if you can go to our Patreon, it's $1.50 a month. You can go and do a super chat or a rumble rant if you wish, or you can just simply like, share, and subscribe. They're all good ways to support the channel, and we appreciate whatever you do, even if you're just watching. All right, so we got that out the way because if I didn't mention it, who would, right? So we did have to, promotion. We got to promote the channel, of course. Now, separate of that, we're in a very interesting time in America, I think, and the world. We're seeing a lot. By the way, someone let me know. User's been banned as the first one to comment today. Thank you, user, saying that Labor Day has communist roots. So I like working on that day. Well, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a May Day thing. Fair enough. But it's a holiday, it's a celebration, it's a celebration of workers and our military and our nation in general. So I'm willing to overlook the communist undertones that may or may not exist in there. By the way, let me know if the volume, if you guys can hear me okay. If I have to, I will switch to the microphone. If you're wondering, I'm using a MacBook Air, which is not our normal technology, but my computer is black screen death. Thank you, Windows 10. And I'm still paying off $3,000 for my puppy who went to the the veterinarian, and he had to get a ultrasound on his chest and his liver because he's 14 years old. And so we wanted to make sure he was going to be okay. By the way, we did get the test results. We did get the test results. Khan is old. That's essentially it. He has some degenerative heart disease, and he has some minor liver disease, but that's because of age, not because of other problems. So he is 14, and you would expect that someone who's that old, a puppy is that old, they're going to have some kind of a little bit of heart disease, a little bit of liver disease because of their age. And so that's what's been affecting him. He's otherwise pretty good. Matter of fact, right now he's sleeping, laying on the floor right next to me. So he's doing fantastic. But $3,000 to get an ultrasound of his chest and his stomach, his liver, it's incredible. So if you can, please, donate. It does help to pay off that bill because, that's huge. That's ridiculous. The prices have skyrocketed since 2020. But that being said, okay. But I was going to say that we're in a very interesting time. We see in England, they're banning the English flag, the St. George's flag. And we're seeing that there is a imminent culture clash between the traditional British population and migrants, especially illegal aliens in England. And they're doing basically the California model. England is following the California model, and we're seeing that at some point when you reach saturation for that community, it explodes. England is a lot smaller than California. It's a lot smaller than, of course, the United States. They have about 80 million people, 60 million people in the United Kingdom, as opposed to the 350 million people in the United States. The United States is obviously far, far larger. Um, and England is a relatively small island. So they're reaching their saturation point, and this is boiling over in their culture and also in their politics far faster than it is, say, in the United States or even in California. But that is the future. That these cultures, when you massively increase the number of illegal aliens into a nation, and I do mean illegal aliens. Legal migration is not a problem. That's never been a problem. Legal migration are those people who want to be part of your culture, they want to be part of your country, and they are willing to integrate into that culture that already exists, that those laws, that everything, every aspect of what is already there. They're integrating voluntarily because they want to be. Illegal immigrants are taking advantage of legal systems, they're taking advantage of opportunities politically. And that's why they're coming to your country. That's why most of the migrants coming into the illegal aliens coming into America, it's because they're taking advantage of our healthcare. They're taking advantage of being able to be put up in hotels and in shelters, getting credit cards for $13,000. They're taking advantage of the goodwill and also the political badwill in the United States. I don't blame them for doing that. I mean, they're coming from hellhole countries into the United States. It's not just Mexico. People like to say that because it's easy to make it sound racist, and that promotes a political agenda. But we're talking about people from Thailand. We're talking about people from China. We're talking about people from Angola, Mozambique. We're talking about people from Venezuela and Chile. We're talking about people from El Salvador as well as Mexico. We have people all around the world taking advantage of the free stuff that's available. And the reason why this is happening, someone asked me this recently, but Mike, if it's so bad, why are Democrats doing it? If it's so destructive, why are Democrats doing it? Why do they want the open borders? Why do they want the illegal aliens? Well, the simple answer is it's politics. In 2021, Joe Biden, one of the first things that he did by executive order was he changed the census so that it would count people, the population in each state, regardless of whether they're an American citizen or they're an illegal alien. So illegal aliens counted. Now, as an example, I've talked about this before. In New York State, we lose about a quarter of a million to 350,000 residents every single year. This has been true for the last decade. It was actually started back in 1958. And that's why New York went from 45 members in the House of Representatives to today we have 26. But the biggest drain started pretty much under the Andrew Cuomo administration. When he said that conservatives they want to hug their God, their guns. Yeah, well, of course we do. And he said get out because he wanted New York to be the progressive capital on the East Coast, if not for all of America. And he tried his very best to do that. Well, people left. The conservatives, many of them in the middle class, they left and they took their businesses, their houses, their wealth, and they took it and went to other places, Texas, Florida, down to North Carolina, many other states. So New York was losing about a quarter of a million or more people every single month. We led the nation in people leaving the state. But we needed those illegal aliens to come in. And with Joe Biden's help, we counted them. And we had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of illegal aliens coming into New York. So when you count them, they make up for the number of American citizens that left. So instead of losing three in 2010, excuse me, yeah, 2020, or 2020, excuse me, in 2020, instead of losing three congressional seats, we only lost one, barely. Why? Illegal aliens. Same thing for California. California would have lost 5 congressional seats because people left. They were going to Texas and to Nevada and Arizona, but they had a lot of illegal aliens that came in. And so they made up the difference. So Democrats were able to keep their power. That's one of the reasons why open borders is so important to Democrats, because it allows them, as long as they're counting the illegal aliens, to maintain their power in Congress. So that's important to understand why these things are happening. But when you do that, you put pressure on the community. As an example, excuse me, as an example, here in the Bronx, we have one of the largest migrant communities, multiple mi- migrant communities in all of New York State, if not most of the country. Many of the people in the Bronx are also some of the poorest migrants and illegal aliens in the entire country. We have a huge number of unskilled individuals coming from third world nations. And when they came here, unlike in the 80s and the 90s, when we had a lot of people, we had a lot of migrants, say from Jamaica, from China and Southeast Asia, but those were middle class workers. They were skilled individuals who wanted to be part of America. And so they integrated into the community and helped build it up. And they had the skills to be able to do so. And so they didn't bring negative traditions from their countries into America. But these waves of illegal aliens that have been entering, they don't have any skills. All they have are the negative uh, um, experiences, the history that they've had in their own country. And so they brought the third world to the Bronx. And they're living as if they are still in the third world, but they're doing it in America. They're doing it in the Bronx. They're doing it in California, Chicago, Boston. And when you have that kind of culture clash, that brings in crime. And that's one of the reasons why crime has been growing in all the major cities and in many of the sanctuary states across America. And so it's a very difficult process. Now, if we actually deport and if we continue to do mass deportations, we will see that balance itself out as we reduce the number of illegal aliens, as we reduce the number of unskilled individuals who are living a third world life in America, then we will get more towards an equilibrium, and you will see that they will integrate into America better, and we will see less crime from these individuals. But until then, the crime rates are going to continue to go up. That's just the reality of it. But I want to answer that. I know someone had asked me about that before. But that climate of antagonism, that climate of combat, that combativeness is affecting all of us. And it's been fueled by the news media that has been lived, they just have been pushing fear on people. I've been on several chats on, I follow a lot of different podcasters, a lot of different political pundits, and I look at the audiences in the chat rooms for many of these individuals, and I hear on a regular basis about 10% of everyone's audience, whether they're on the left, the far left, Democrat, Republican, conservative, libertarian, about 10% of everyone's audience is saying that they're afraid, that they are terrified of what's coming next. Not necessarily because of Donald Trump. Some people are like, oh, well, it's because of the Republicans or the progressives, or it's because of third parties, or whatever their reason, they're scared. About 10% of America, I would say at this moment, is legitimately terrified that they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They're expecting World War III at any given moment. They're expecting that there's going to be mass shootings in their neighborhood any given hour. These aren't realities. This isn't the realistic fears that we should have, because that's just not what's happening. That's not the environment we're in. And the future has been improving, actually over the last 7 months, 200 days. But we're not there. But we're far from falling into a third world status as the mainstream news media would make you feel. And that fear has a target, it has a purpose, because it makes you depend on government. Mostly the left leaning Democratic Party, yes, that is the preference of the news media. But overall, they want you to be dependent on the establishment of government as it exists, to just bow down your heads and to obey and comply and subordinate yourself to government itself. This is about power. And that's why they want you to be afraid, so that they can make the promise to you, we're going to fix crime. We're going to get rid of the mass shootings. They know. They've been saying that for 50 years, especially with the mass shootings. We're going to protect you. We're going to pass another law that only affects the 99.994% of law abiding gun owners. And we're going to pass this law, and this time the criminals will follow the law. This time, the criminally insane, well, they will recognize it, they will get sanity, and they will not commit these crimes. We'll have a gun free zone, and everyone will obey. Even though gun free zones are 94% of all mass shootings occur in gun free zones. It's one of the hot spots of gun violence in the entire nation. No matter what country, no matter what state, no matter what city, it doesn't matter if it's controlled by the left or the right. If you're in a gun-free zone, you're more likely to be in an incident where gun violence will occur than anywhere else. That's just the reality of it. So, but we're hearing from the news media saying, no, 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 trust your elected officials, trust government. They will protect you. And all you're going to give up are a few freedoms that you don't really need. You don't really use them. Just obey and you will be safe. Except you're never safe. And we saw that in Minnesota, in the Minneapolis church shooting this week. We also saw it in Syracuse this week. After the shooting, the Minneapolis church shooting, we saw that in Syracuse, I believe it was on Thursday, might have been Friday, that the Destiny USA Mall in Syracuse, New York, it was shut down completely because people were terrified, absolutely terrified that there was this was going to be a scene of another mass shooting. That a guy was walking around with a rifle, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's an assault rifle," which doesn't exist. It's not real. Okay, again, the term assault rifle was made by a Democrat in California in 1984. It doesn't exist. There are machine guns. Absolutely. There's 743,000 machine guns in the United States right this second and have been for decades. People own tanks right now. No joke. You can go to the ATF yourself. You will see the records. American citizens own tanks. They own flamethrowers. They own mine layers. They own rocket launchers. And yes, almost a million, three-quarters of a million uh, uh, machine guns. And no one ever uses those. They're not the problem. That's not the issue. It's the criminal and the criminally insane. That's where our problem is. And that's what we need to address. And in Syracuse, people were so terrified of the concept of someone having a rifle, which one out of two people in America own a firearm. Most of them are handguns, about 60%. But most people in America, half of America owns a firearm. And people are terrified. Oh my God, someone's got a rifle and he's in the mall in Syracuse. It's going to be a mass shooting because that's what the media has been telling you. You have to be afraid. You have to be scared. If everyone isn't exactly like you, if everyone isn't doing exactly what you do, if they're not complying with the government 100%, then you're in danger. That's a lie. As it turned out, at the Destiny USA Mall, a guy had an umbrella. The umbrella had a handle which is similar to a samurai sword, and it had the way the umbrella folded. It looked like a longer, more rectangular object, which people were confusing with someone hiding or holding a rifle. Now, it makes no sense when you really think about it. So I've got this square object. Okay, rifles aren't square, but maybe you think he's holding it, it's draped over, so it looks kind of squarish. Okay, but rifles aren't squarish. They're not. Okay, and the guy's holding on to a samurai sword hilt. It would make more sense if people were terrified and said, "Oh my God, he's running around with a samurai sword." That would have made more sense to me. But he wasn't even doing that. It's an umbrella, a novelty umbrella. But they shut down an entire mall and terrified an entire community because of the fear that the news media has been putting into people's lives. That's a problem. That tells you the problem isn't it's with the laws. Gun control doesn't work, but it's also that the news media has been manipulating you for so long, all of us, for so long, that we're terrified of our own shadow, and something that 10 years ago no one would have blinked at. 10 years ago no one would have even thought about that. Maybe someone say, is that a samurai sword? That's what some people might have said, and most people would have ignored it completely and kept going about their day without any fear whatsoever. But today, now people are terrified, and buildings have to be, businesses, structures have to be shut down because people are terrified. Because we've been told you have to be scared, you have to be afraid 24/7. Human beings can't live in that kind of environment. We can't be scared 24/7. We can't be afraid of everything around us all the time, everywhere. It's great for the corporations. It's terrible for the people. So I wanted to bring that up. Now, it's insane what we're seeing with the legislation. And I do see your comments about that, user. I do see you're talking about, well, New York State, they're trying to put bills in so that there's going to be, you have to have insurance for owning a firearm, which is stupid. It's stupid. And and they're also trying to have a bill. They're trying to have, you need a license for ammunition, which is stupid. These are things that are being done for control. And the only reason why people are considering that is because of fear. Let me, I equate that to the fact that in New York State, it is illegal to own passive self defense. That is to say, it is illegal to have a bulletproof vest. I own a bulletproof vest, by the way. So the police want to come and arrest me. Come on down. I have a bulletproof vest. I wear it. Why? Because I cover Antifa. I cover rallies and protests on the left, which are often very violent. Not so much for the right. The right doesn't really, they don't burn down buildings. You don't have arson. They don't go around killing people. The left does regularly. That is something very common for them. And in many communities, I'm a known quantity. They know I'm a conservative Republican and I do this live stream. They don't like that I cover them live. So I have had many threats of violence against me. So I wear bulletproof vests when I cover some of these events. That's a crime in New York State. That's stupid. That makes no sense. It just denies me protection. It doesn't. And again, it's a bulletproof vest. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's a passive self defense, but that's illegal. Why? Because I'm supposed to be scared. So even though I'm going out to these rallies and I've decided that I needed something to protect myself passively from any danger, no, 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 I don't get to do that in New York State. Instead, I need to be afraid. I have to be defenseless and afraid. How is that making the situation better? How does that make it better for anyone. Now they want, what does that mean? Now I have to what? Get a concealed carry permit. Now I have to carry a knife or other weapons to be able to defend myself if someone wants to attack me because I'm covering a live event and they don't like my politics. Now we are escalating the situation because I've been denied the ability to passively and quietly remove one of the main threats that could be endangering my life. And now I have to be more proactive and more involved. That's not better for anyone. But the politicians don't think this through because they don't care about the consequences. They're only worried about the now. And this is very much progressive ideology. They will use the past to make you afraid of the future so that they can control the current. And that's just the way they do their politics. They never talk about, they will promise you anything. The future is going to be perfect. It's going to be all rainbows and unicorns. Everyone will be in harmony. It'll be great. That's what they always promise. And what do you actually get? Nothing, nothing even close to that. Never. Instead, we have to deal with the consequences of their policies. That the only thing that happens is the elites, the political elites, the party leaders, they get to be more powerful. Certain political organizations aligned with those party leaders, they get to have benefits, like looking at BLM. And her name is Parson, something like that. The woman who started, and I know I'm missing her name now because I'm thinking of it, but the woman who started um, Black Lives Matters, which is a communist organization meant to introduce Black people to communism. She's a socialist, self-avowed. Patrice Cullors, that's her name. Patrice Cullors. And she got $90 million in donations. And she then bought 6 mansions for her and her family. She employed her family members, like her brother, who was doing security for her, for about $300,000 a year. And then she just walked away. None of the money was actually used to help any of the communities. It wasn't used to help empower people. It wasn't used to make cities safer. It wasn't used to feed children. Everything that she promised didn't happen. Only thing that happened is she got to be more powerful in the moment and she got to benefit in the moment. And the consequence was everyone else suffered. And now the people who donated to BLM and saw that it resulted in nothing but greed and it helped a couple of socialists get extremely wealthy and become multimillionaires. Well, why would I donate to the next charity? Why would I donate to the next organization? It actually hurt the nation. It hurt many of these communities that needed someone there to help either feed the poor, help the homeless, to help those with mental issues. That's money that could have gone to all of those issues. It went to none of them because BLM poisoned the well. That's the reality. That's how progressives hurt us with their rhetoric because they're worried about the now, not the consequence. And their now always aligns with their political and personal agenda. It is very selfish, always has been, always will be. And so we need to take that into account. So I'm bringing that up because, let's see, hang on, user has been banned, says the right protests, what do you say here? The right protests and the place is cleaner than before the protest. Usually, usually that is true. Um, the right, normally, when the right protests, this is why police are not afraid of seeing the right come out and protest because they're law abiding. I mean, it's part of the conservative ideology. You're following the law. They want more law enforcement. So they're less likely to riot. They're less likely to have arson. They're less likely to be violent. They're less likely to pollute or damage property. and vandalize things because those are things that they're against. Their whole ideology is against that. So they're less likely to do that. The left, on the other hand, is about revolution. They want to destroy what exists, so they don't mind destroying anything you have. That's the reality. And if someone on the left thinks, Mike, you just don't understand, which they always say, then fantastic. Please, I'm more than happy to hear your comments in the chat, super chat, rumble rant. Tell me how I'm misunderstanding that. But I can point to dozens upon dozens of political events and protests and autonomous zones across this country for the last 15 years, every single year over the last 15 years, including in the last 7 months, where that is the truth. That is what we are seeing the left do. And there is virtually no equivalent. I mean, the only thing that you always hear, the left will say, well, January 6th, not the same, not the same at all. We didn't burn down Washington, D.C., there were 300,000 people there. They could have. We didn't take over the government. There were 300,000 people there. We could have. There were 300,000 people weren't armed looking to change the government. That's not a reality. There was no plan, no organization. We know this. It's been investigated over and over again. We know these things for a fact. So all there is the fear, but that fear doesn't equate to what we are seeing. So again, I'm just trying to be honest with it because that honesty makes a difference. So that kind of brings me to one of the issues I wanted to talk about today. And I know a lot of people will probably see this after the fact because holiday, you're out enjoying the beach or going to events today, and I hope you enjoy them. But uh, there is something that I think is important. Is today Donald Trump came out and he's putting out an executive order. Um, Hang on one second. Sorry, I'm just checking on my ride to the Bronx event. Hang on one second. Okay. Um, Sorry, just making sure that I'm set up to go to the live event at 4 o'clock in on Arthur Avenue with Larry Sharp and Dion Powell. But so excuse me for that. But today, Donald Trump came out and said that he's going to put in an executive order that will require in all 50 states that everyone must have a ID to vote in an election. And the left is losing their mind. They're going crazy on this. Oh my God. You can't force people to show an ID to prove their identity so that they can vote. That is somehow that's racist. I don't know how that's racist. How is it racist? And in particular, they love to say, well, that's racist against black people. How is asking people to have an ID racist against any one group of people? How is that? I don't understand. It's one thing if they said, well, no, see, that's picking on the poor. That's a different argument. And that's almost credible. It's not really credible, but it's almost credible because they'll say, well, the poor people can't afford to get IDs, like the real ID in New York, which is way overpriced and it's useless. Instead of buying a real ID, go and get yourself a passport. You can use that internationally around the world. It's good for 10 years. It is an actual ID. It's federal identification as opposed to a state that may or may not be accepted by other countries or other states because it's not required. But a passport is good everywhere in the world. So I would advise you, if you're going to spend the money, and you're spending almost the same amount of money, then why buy a real ID which is generally useless. It's just a way to make money for New York State. No, no, go and get yourself a passport. So then you can actually travel around the world. And it's far more powerful, far more useful. Because I guarantee you, you go over to another country and you show them your New York State real ID, and they will laugh in your face because that will not get you into the US Embassy if there is if a civil war breaks out in the country. If you're trying to escape a country and you show the Marine at on guard at the US Embassy across the world, and you say, "Here, I have a New York State real ID." That's not a passport. You don't get to go in. That's just the truth. I show my blue passport, I get to walk into the US Embassy. No one stops me, no one thinks about it. They just see it. There it is. I have the blue passport, and I will walk past everyone and walk right into that embassy. That isn't a guess. I've done it. I've been in Moscow. I've been in Riga and Tbilisi. I've been in other countries, and I have used my passport and just held it up and walked through an entire crowd of people, walked right past the Marine on guard duty at the embassy, and walked onto the embassy grounds. I walked into that embassy. No hesitation. No one stopped me. No one thought twice. You're holding a New York or the equivalent of a New York State real ID. You're not walking through that crowd. You're being stopped before you get to go to that embassy. And when we're talking about a critical time that you need to get somewhere safe because, I don't know, a civil war is breaking out, no one wants to stop and go, let me see if this New York ID, do we accept it? Is it real? Is it accepted? Is it international? No one wants to deal with that. And they don't want to, is it fake? Is it real? They don't want to deal with that. They want to say, that's a passport. That's real. You're in. That's not a passport. You wait in line. And that could be a difference of you living or dying. So, I know it's a tangent, but I recommend absolutely don't get the New York State real ID. It's useless. Get a passport. Far better. Far, far, far better. But that, again, is detracting. So, it's one thing to say to me, Mike, poor people can't afford ID, which is not true. In almost every single state, there is a discount or there is a program that if you are poor, you will be able to get state ID. That they have a program, they have a means, they have a test on your income, and you are able to get an ID. So you can't tell me you can't afford it. In almost every state, well over 35 states have a program to make sure of that. And they will adjust that for you so you can afford it. In many states, it's absolutely free. So you can't tell me you can't afford it. By the way, if you don't have ID and you're over the age of 21, you can't go out to a bar, you can't rent a car. There's a huge list of things you can't do. You can't get on a plane. There's just a huge list of things. You can't get a job. So you mean to tell me that poor people are they don't have ID? No, they have ID. They're just not used to using it. It's uncommon for them. And so they're saying because it's uncommon, now you have to do something that you didn't do before. Well, that's not a burden. That's just a change in habit. And it's actually a very minor change in habit. Almost everyone, you go into your wallet, American citizen, you have an ID of some form. And you use that ID on a regular basis. You want to go get cigarettes, you need an ID. So this is something that's very common. But the left likes to make it sound this is such a burden. It's so difficult. It's so impossible. And black people can't do it. They love to point black people out as a monolith and say, well, black people can't get ID. Why the hell not? Everyone else can. We're American citizens. Why are we so much more different? Because we're not. If a white person can get an ID, a black person can get an ID, a Hispanic person an Asian person, we're all American citizens, we can get ID. So it's not like, oh, I can't get that ID. What is racist is saying that because you have a certain skin tone, you can't get ID. To make that presumption is racist. And that's the left. They are racist when they say that to you. And to presume just on the basis of someone's skin color that they don't have ID, that is racist. So the left is being racist and using their own ingrained racism. They're using that as an answer to try and manipulate elections. I think that's insane. I think that's horrific. And I know the mainstream news media never words it like this. The left never words it like this. They always like to make it sound like, well, no, 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 you just don't understand. They always love to say that. You don't understand how racist it is. Well, I am black and I am Hispanic and I am an American citizen and I have ID and my friends have ID. My family has ID. What do you mean I don't understand? I know what the process is to get ID. I know what you need to use to do that. And it's no different for me to get ID than anyone else who's an American citizen. So that doesn't make any sense. That's illogical. In fact, that's racist to presume that I can't, that I don't have the capability, either monetarily, or I'm not intelligent enough, or I don't know how, I don't have the means to look up the information to be able to fill out the form to get the ID. That's insulting. So when they say, oh, well, it's racist, no, 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 no. It's actually racist to say I can't do it than to say that I must. It's far, far more easier and logical to say, well, yeah, you're going to have ID. And in fact, the overwhelming majority of all Americans, regardless of their color, regardless of their background, so I believe the number is 87% of all American citizens have ID. That's people from the age of 16 to the age of like 70. Americans have ID. Why? Because we use it on a regular basis. Because it's part of our life. It's a requirement to be able to do things every day. So to tell me that it's racist is stupid. That's the way to cloud the issue and to make me think I'm being subjugated. And not necessarily me. They're not trying to make me feel like, oh, because I have ID, they're not trying to make me feel bad. They're trying to make me feel sympathy with this imaginary straw man of some black guy who has neither the money nor the intelligence to be able to get an ID like I have already done, even though that person is completely imaginary. That is the imagining of a racist leftist. They've imagined this person that this straw man exists. It doesn't exist. It's not a reality. It's not true. And they can't, and I love it because they can't point to any state where they have, where the majority of black people, or even large populations of blacks or Hispanics or women or anyone, that they don't have IDs and they are American citizens. Now, if you want to point to, well, what about the illegal aliens? They're criminals. They don't have IDs. That's part of the reason why they're an illegal alien. They don't have authorization or identification to be in the United States. And so if you want to alter votes, well, you could probably do it that way. Now, I know there's a Reuters article on this, and the Reuters article likes to say, well, it's complete misinformation. And I know YouTube will say it's complete misinformation that illegal aliens, they don't vote in federal elections. That's not true. That's not true because we know there have been several DOJ cases, Department of Justice cases against illegal aliens that have voted that voted in 2016, in 2020, and 2024. So we know the cases actually exist according to the Department of Justice under the Biden administration, not the Trump administration. These were investigations during the Biden administration. We know that states like Oregon and Washington State, they were giving out IDs, their voter registration to illegal aliens. We know at least 300 received voter registrations automatically because they gave them, because the state, I believe it was Oregon, could be Washington State, um, gave them identification, the illegal aliens, which is also something that they shouldn't be able to have. But when they gave them the ID, they also registered them to vote automatically. New York State does the same thing. And we know that there are, and you could say it's hundreds, you could say it's thousands across the country, you could say it's tens of thousands, it might be hundreds of thousands, it could be millions. No one has actually done an audit. Not one state has done an audit to see how many of the illegal, if there are any illegal aliens on the voter roll. We've seen some cities have done it, and we know that in some cases, the accident, there's been an error, and we see that hundreds have been identified as being able, have been registered to vote in federal elections and local elections. We know this has happened. That is a fact. So you can't say in the news media, Reuters, and if you go on to chat GPT, they'll tell you, no, no, it doesn't happen at all. Never happens. You talk to any Democrat, it doesn't happen. It's an absolute fabrication. There are court cases. Democrats, Board of Education, Democrats on the Board of Educations of multiple states have gone to court and have been convicted because they have manipulated elections, the ballots and voter IDs and registrations. That is a fact. It has happened. Now, you may need to ask an extra question on ChatGPT. And Chat will say, no, 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 it's never happened. Has there ever been a conviction? Has the Department of Justice ever arrested and convicted anyone of being an illegal alien voting in elections? And the answer will be yes. Not many, but that has happened. Have any of the states, especially the bluer than blue states, have they ever given voter registrations to illegal aliens? They will say, not many, but it happens. And we don't know how often it happens. But the mainstream media wants to push this message to you that, well, it doesn't happen. But it does happen. And if you question them on that, they'll go, well, actually, it does happen, but it doesn't happen a lot. Well, wait a minute, you just told me it didn't happen at all. Now you're telling me it doesn't happen a lot. How many more questions, how much more investigation do I have to do before I find out, oh, actually, it's pretty commonplace and it happens in the thousands? Oh, but they won't do the investigation that would allow me to be able to determine that. They won't do the audits of the voter rolls. And you see Democrats fight against that every single year. Every election year, you see Republicans and Libertarians and third parties and the Conservative Party will come out and say, we want to do an audit. We see this on a regular basis every year in every state, that these groups will come out either together or independently and say, we would like to see the state do an audit of the voter roll. And Democrats will say no. Mind you, in Republican states, the Republicans will say no. The establishment will say no. Why? Because they like the system like it is. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to take the risk. And maybe they know the amount of risk, but they don't want to take the risk of losing their percentage of votes and their representation in various state legislatures and in the House of Representatives. They don't want to do the risk. So instead, they leave the system as is, knowing fully well it's completely broken, that it's not working, because they don't care, because that's not their priority. So, with that understanding, which is completely verifiable, then, oh, by the way, hang on. D asked me a question. I want to just answer real quick. D, yes, I'm going to the 4 p.m. I am going to the 4 p.m. event. with Larry in the Bronx today. I am. Um, and I do want to take the comment from, and by the way, thank you, D, for being part of the audience. And Users Been Banned says, Black kids have never seen a computer. That's what Empress Kathy Cultural has said. She says that they don't know how to use a computer. I believe it's that she said that they don't know how to use a computer. I'm not sure that she said they haven't seen one. But either way, again, completely racist. It's completely, it is beyond illogical to make these kind of statements. And yet we hear that on a regular basis. Why? Because that helps the establishment maintain control over you. It allows the system to be broken in the way that is advantageous to the existing political powers, the party leadership, the organizations that feed off of those party leaderships. Those are NGOs and other organizations that get money from US aid. Um, they benefit from these negatives, from this broken system. So Donald Trump has made a very simple statement. Okay, great. Show your ID. You have it. You have an ID. And by the way, if 85, let's say it's 85% of Americans have ID, in any election years, presidential election years are the highest number of turnout. That's when everyone comes out and they vote. And historically, consistently, we see that 6 out of 10 people vote. About 60 to 65% in a good presidential year will show up once every 4 years to vote. And every other election is somewhere around 3 to 4 out of 10 people are actually voting in elections. So if you're telling me, if we know for a fact, the data says that 85% of all Americans have an ID, and we know that on average, about four people out of 10, 40% of Americans are actually voting. We have enough people, there's more than enough people who are with IDs that are voting. They can do it. They can vote. So again, the logic that the left uses doesn't make sense unless you presume and you rely on racism and economic slavery. That has to exist and has to be supported for the left to be correct because it doesn't match reality. All right. So Donald Trump says, okay, great. You have an ID, you're an American citizen, go vote. You can vote for whomever you want. Don't care who you vote. He hasn't said this isn't to benefit Republicans or Democrats because Republicans, Democrats, all Americans have ID. So it doesn't matter. Everyone can go. You have an ID, regardless of your political faction. You have an ID. You can go and vote. You're third party. You're libertarian. You're the Green Party. You can go vote. Why? You have an ID. No one's stopping you. The only one who says you can't vote are the left, are saying you can't vote because they want you in the party. But no one else is stopping you. Donald Trump isn't stopping black people from voting, Hispanics or women. He's not stopping them from voting. And there is no evidence how this stops black people. Stacey Abrams in Georgia tried to say in 2016, was coming out and said, "Oh my God, black people can't vote." It was the highest turnout for her. She was like, "No one's black people aren't able to vote for Stacey Abrams in Georgia because voter ID laws." The highest turnout of black women voters in that year came out and voted, and Stacey Abrams lost. So when they lie to your face, the evidence, the empirical data refutes and is absolutely the opposite of what they tell you because they're fear mongering, because they're trying to get an advantage. They're trying to manipulate. But over and over again, we see the evidence says they're wrong. Again, you don't have to believe me. Look up Stacey Abrams, look up her governor's run, look at the number of black women voters. It tells you right there. She's screaming about black women can't vote. It's a record number of black women voting. So I don't understand. I thought you said they couldn't vote, that they were restricted, that it was racist and it was economically disadvantaged, so they couldn't do it. But yet they showed up in record numbers. So what are you talking about, Stacey Abrams? The left makes it up as they go. So am I upset with Donald Trump about the voter ID law? No, I think it's actually very good. Because even if there's a small amount of illegal aliens that are voting in elections in the United States, it's not that 60%, they're going to come out and that 60% of the vote is all of a sudden wrong. No, no, no. It's about 2 to 3% of the vote is wrong. Most elections, especially if you're talking about local elections, you're talking about city level elections or state level elections. Do you know how many of those elections are decided by a handful of votes? Since what? Since 2018. Do you know how many elections in the New York 22nd district? That's 8 counties. How many elections in those 8 counties came down to 100 or less votes? In fact, there was the New York 22nd race in 2020 came down to less than a dozen, less than 12 votes. In fact, I think the final number was five. 5 votes made the difference about whether Anthony Brindisi or Claudia Tenney became the next congressman. 5 votes. And what if there are illegal aliens that are in that count? Oh, so all you need is 5 illegal aliens, 5 individuals that were able to vote. You don't need 100,000. You don't need a million. In some elections, even for Congress or for county sheriff or for the mayor or for the state legislature, sometimes those votes are as small as 5 people. That's it. So 5 illegal aliens, not the 20 million people in New York State, 5. That's all it takes. And now you have one extra Democrat and one less Republican. And now you should change the balance of power, potentially for the entire nation. That one seat could decide, do Democrats have control of the House of Representatives or Republicans? Do and that is all it needs. And that swings the nation. That changes national policy. 5 votes. I know you're told all the time, but your vote doesn't count. No, it does. The people who tell you your vote doesn't count don't want you to vote. You will mess up their system. They are counting on the establishment, keeping the status quo. They want the broken system to keep going because if it does, they take advantage of it. They're able to win. If you start voting, then their system doesn't work. They might lose, and they don't want to deal with that. So they don't want the change. They want, whether it's 5 illegal aliens or 500,000, doesn't matter. They want every illegal alien that is registered to be registered. And they don't want to question that. And they don't want anyone to check on that. They don't want to change that. That's in the red state, that's in blue state, it's in every single state. Is that good for you? No, no, it's not good for the voter. It's only good for the political party. It's only good for the establishment. It has nothing to do with your freedoms, your rights, or having the best candidate for whatever elected office. It doesn't help you. But they don't care about that. Just like Stacey Abrams. She doesn't care about black women. She didn't care about helping black women. She wanted to win. It was about her advantage. It was about Democrats getting more power. So she lied to the black women and said, your vote doesn't count. That you're being suppressed. It's evil. It's racist. Aren't you mad? Now go out and vote. even though the actual truth is no, she had record numbers of black women voting, and she knew it. She lied because it was in her advantage, because fear motivates, and she wants to take advantage. That's the broken system acting in place. So Donald Trump wants to change that. I think that's a good thing. And I don't know of a single argument that is legitimate in saying, no, you shouldn't have an ID to vote. I've heard all the arguments. I think I've heard all the arguments over the last 20 years. I think I've heard, and this is a 20-year argument. And the left is consistently the one who says, no, you can't do that. Republicans are willing to do it. Libertarians are willing to do it. Green Party's willing to do it. The third parties are willing to do this. Most of them, not ever, not all of them, most of them. But the left are the ones who say, no, you can't do that. Why is that? Why are they the ones who stand out? They're also the ones who go to, El Salvador to get human traffickers to bring them back into the United States so that they can live in the United States on your tax dollar, that they can get your tax money to live in the United States, even though they're a criminal in El Salvador and they're a criminal in Maryland. Yes, I'm talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And Democrats, a dozen Democrats on the taxpayer dime flew to El Salvador in the top five-star hotels and met with various elected officials and or Kilmar Abrego Garcia himself. And then after their vacation was over, came back again. The taxpayer paid for this. Then came back and fought for the criminals to be able to continue to commit crimes in America against you, the taxpayer. Does that make any sense? Does that make sense to anyone? The left is very, very adamant about keeping this system in place. But yet the system doesn't actually help the American people. It does help the party. It doesn't help the people. We should call that out. D says, just taking a comment here, D says, my mayor says black and brown people in Jacksonville, Florida can't get IDs. So because of that, they're getting suppressed when it comes to voting. Your mayor in Jacksonville is lying. That is a lie. Because black people can, brown people can get an ID. Illegal aliens can't. Notice he says black and brown people. Your mayor said black and brown people because if he said Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, if he said Asian Americans, that would be a lie. He could be proven absolutely wrong. It would be slanderous as well as racist. But when he says it's black and brown people, well, that means he's counting people from Angola. He's counting people that are coming from Venezuela, from Chile. He's counting people from, yes, Mexico, but he's also counting people from Mozambique and Niger and Chad and Burkina Faso and over in the United Arab Emirates. He's counting people from around the world who aren't American citizens. He's playing games. He's playing word games. Americans can, unless Jacksonville is more poor than Mississippi, and it's not. If he has completely failed, if black people and brown people in Jacksonville, Florida, cannot afford, if the average majority, if the majority of black and brown people, excuse me, black Americans and Hispanic people in Jacksonville, Florida, can't afford to get an ID. And I believe that IDs in the state of Florida, if you are poor, are free. I believe Florida is one of at least a dozen states that will give poor people a free ID. Double check me on that, folks. Chat, double check me on that. But I believe it is. But let's assume that The discounted rate, which I believe in Florida is $15. If you can't afford $15 in Jacksonville, then the mayor and the leadership, the elected officials in Jacksonville, have completely failed the public, and it's their fault. It's not the fault of voting. It's not the ID. It's that the leadership, have failed the people. Therefore, they should be voted out of office. Get someone who's voted into office so that everyone can afford to get an ID. But I am very sure that in Florida, poor people get a free ID, and I believe they also have a discounted rate for people who are above poverty but still below a certain level. Many states have this, so it's that in between. You're not poverty, but you're poor. You're still poor. They have a discounted rate for IDs. Many states have that, and I believe Florida has both. Let's see. Grace says, because the left wants the destruction of the U.S., so they can rebuild it into a communist regime. Um, I think at one point they would like it, the United States, to not necessarily be communist, but to be socialist. We know this. The Democratic Socialists of America, they straight up, they're a progressive wing of the Democratic Party. The progressives, on a regular basis, will tell you directly to your face if you ask them the question. They have no problem saying on the record they want to destroy the Constitution, they want to destroy the amendments, they want to change the foundation of America. They're not bashful about it. I've had many, many, many interviews and covered many, many events and many of their candidates. And if you ask them, they will tell you right to your face. Yeah, that's part of their principles. The Democratic Socialists of America, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, she doesn't get asked the question anymore, but she was, look at her in her first term. Look at her when she was on the campaign trail. She told everyone up front, yeah, she wants to get rid of the Constitution. They have no problem. They want to make that change. The question you should ask is that in your best interest? I don't believe it is, which is why they're so dishonest and why they're always talking about what's happening right now and never what are the consequences of this? What is the next thing? When they set those dominoes down and they start tipping them over and you lose your First Amendment right, remember, they want to take away the Constitution. So you don't have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness anymore. They took that away. You don't have a right to free speech anymore because they took that away. You don't have a right to defend yourself or to have private property. They take that away. That's what the Democratic Socialists of America want to do. That's what the progressives want to do when they tell you they want to get rid of that. Oh, they're going to put something else in place, but that doesn't give you an absolute right. It gives you permission. They will give you the permission to own some property, but they get to choose how much property you get. You have a right to defend yourself to an extent. They get to decide how much and with what you get to defend yourself. We've seen this over and over again, but the mainstream media doesn't like talking about it. Why? They agree with them. Why? Their teachers in college were socialists who taught them about socialism, so now they promote socialism in their newspapers, in their TV shows. They have a political partisan agenda, and they're not honest enough to tell you that. Am I, as I said, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. Take everything I say with a pound of salt. Go double check it for yourself. Don't believe me blindly. Go double check for yourself. You will see everything I am saying is verifiable and true. I'm not lying. I don't need to lie. It's the facts. And you will find this evidence in the left leaning news media if you look for it. But they don't think you will. They don't think you're going to take the time. You're too busy watching the housewives of Who Gives a Damn. You're too busy watching 90 Day Fiance fiascos. You're watching people melt down on live TV, and they are counting on that. I don't. I think you're an intelligent human being. I think you're an adult. I think if you bother to look for it, if you're interested in this, you will find the information for yourself and you'll find out that I was right. I actually believe in you. They believe that you're going to be lazy because that's what they want you. They have taught you in schools to be intellectually lazy, to not double check the news media, to not double check the politicians, to not look up the legislation, to not check on the news stories and compare the US story to the international story and to different publications within several different nations to find out what is the truth. They have taught you not to take the time to care about what's affecting you. And that's how they control you. I don't believe in that. I do not believe in that at all. And that's why I do spend the time for 20 years double checking multiple news sources from around the world. And that's why when I look at Reuters and I look at Reuters and they say, oh yeah, there's no, it doesn't happen. There are no illegal aliens that are voting in elections. That is a empirical, absolute lie. If I am wrong on this, and I know I'm not, because I know the evidence. I know the court cases. I've covered them on this channel before. So yeah, the Reuters, if you want to sue me, let's go to court. Please, please sue me. So we can go to court and I can show you the DOJ cases where illegal aliens are voting, where I can show you the cases across this country where there has been the election manipulation and there have been illegal aliens that have voted. The answer is, are they enormous? Is it 50%? No. Is it even 2%? Sometimes not. But does it have to be? Not when many elections come down to 5 people. No, it doesn't have to be. That's the part they always want you to think. Well, there has to be like 20. They're not 20% of the vote. They don't have to be. They don't have to be. They could be 20 people. And that can win in your county, in your city, on your city council, and very possibly in your House of Representatives election. It could come down to 20 people voting. And if those 20 people are illegal aliens and they're voting in their best interest, not yours, well, that tells you everything right there. Grace has a comment. Grace says they use hate speech to attempt to take away the First Amendment. Same thing with going after the internet. Yeah, there is no such thing as hate speech. It doesn't exist. It's not real. I don't care who you talk to. There are incendiary words. There are words that will incite people to violence. That is true. And those words are not protected. It is true that if you lie and say you scream fire in a theater, that you are not protected by the First Amendment. That is true. By the way, you can yell fire in a crowded theater. You can. Nothing. That is your First Amendment right. You do have the right to do that, but you will not be protected from the consequences of doing that when you lie. When you knowingly and willfully lie, now you're not protected. See, that's actually how the First Amendment works. You can do it. The question is, are you protected legally? And the answer is, well, if you're lying, no. If you're trying to incite violence, no. You are held liable. You are still accountable. That's a big difference from what the left likes to make it sound like. You can't say that. Yes, I can. The question is, can I be held accountable for saying that? I can use every racial slur and known to man if I want. I can. But will I be held accountable for that? Probably, yes. Should I be? Maybe. But there's a big difference. And hate speech is just words that someone doesn't like, usually a leftist. Like if you call someone who believes that they're a toaster and you call them a he instead of a they, them toaster, well, they're going to be offended. That's not my problem. That's not my problem. That's their problem. I am not required to call someone they, them toaster. I'm not. I'm not even required to call them it. I can call him he, I can call him she, I can call him stupid, I can call him anything I want. Doesn't matter. Now, if I say certain things to them to inflame them, maybe I'm held accountable. But that's not hate speech. That's not hateful. You don't know why I'm calling you. If you identify as a toaster and I call you he or she, that doesn't mean I hate you. It means I may not know that you think you're a toaster. If I call you an it because you identify for as a toaster, and I understand English, the English language, and its traditions and the way it actually works. And the answer in American English is he, she, it. Those are the three classifications: he, she, it. And if I call you it, because that's the proper teachings of the English language, well, some people will be upset because they're like, but I'm a toaster. You should say they, them. No, that's your preference. That's what you want me to do. I'm not obligated to do that. So, again, is that hateful? No, it's just proper English. It's the actual language, the way it's supposed to be used. It's not biased by certain people's political preference, their partisan ideology. Now, some will say, but that's rude. There is no law that says I don't get the right to be rude. You may think it's rude. I may not. My friends may not. The people I'm around may not. Just because you or some of your friends or some other organization may think that's rude or disrespectful doesn't mean it is, nor does that mean I have to obey you. You ever notice, and I've said this many, many times in this program, do you ever notice we're always told that we have to change our feelings for the left? We have to change our feelings and the way we see the world to match the left. They never have to change their feelings. They never have to change their thoughts to match anyone else. Why? Why? They're human beings. They're just as flawed as every other human being on the face of the earth. They are just as wrong as every other human being on the face of the earth. Why must we always accept their feelings and we must adopt their feelings instead of them adopting ours? Because they're on the right side of history according to them, according to their feelings, according to their ideology or their delusions of grandeur. That doesn't mean I am obligated to do that. That doesn't mean it's hate speech. It just means I disagree. People don't say that enough. Hey, John was with us, and John said, algorithm, folks, go out and hit the like button. That's what he's saying. Hit the like, the share, and the and most importantly, the subscribe. Makes a massive difference. Let's see. Uh-oh. D says that she now identifies as a toaster and demands a microphone. Oh, you are funny, D. You are funny. How about this? You want to identify as a toaster, and I'll call you D. How about that? I'll call you D, and you can identify as a toaster. That's my compromise. Um, by the way, I'm not necessarily against. I know many trans. I've known many, many trans people long, decades before it became an issue, before it became political. I've known trans people for many years. Uh, and I'm not against necessarily talking to someone about and calling them, and I have called them by their preference. That's my choice. So there are people I know, men and women, who have identified differently, and I know them personally. And I made the choice that those individuals, some of them, not all of them, and I said, okay, and I accept that. I'm willing to accommodate. But that's my personal choice. It's not because of the law. It's not because of some political ideology. It's not because of some uh, uh, fad in politics or in culture at this moment that will go away within 5 years. Mm, Folks, this is part of the problem why we have the Minnesota church shooter. It's because of this kind of crazy ideology where people will go and they, because we've sold them this idea that if they adopt these words, if they adopt this ideology, if they just do what they're told, they're blind affirmation, go change your, take this medication, change your body, change the English language, change the meaning of words, and you will be great. And then everyone will love you and you will get everything that you want. That's the bill of goods that we have been sold. The mainstream news media and certain political organizations have been pushing that message to children throughout the entire school system, from kindergarten all the way into graduate school. It's not true. It's not reality. It has nothing to do with reality. And we are seeing more and more. And this is why this number, I said this earlier this week, we're going to see more of these trans mass shooters. We're going to see it happen more often. It's not just in Tennessee and in Minnesota, but it's also been in Texas. It's been in multiple states. I think there's been seven of the last um, eight major or excuse me, mass shootings, actual mass shootings, were done by trans individuals. Not all of them get the news media. Remember, the Minnesota, they didn't admit, news media didn't tell you the truth. They didn't want you to know that the shooter, an insane, crazed maniac that they were trans. They knew immediately who this individual was. They knew the preferences this individual had, and they ignored that. And the news media didn't. The police didn't say it. The news media didn't say it. They dead named the shooter. They dead named the gender of the shooter, which breaks the progressive ideology that you can't dead name someone even after they're dead, even if they're a vile criminal. No, no, you have to use their name and pronouns that they chose. And the news media didn't do it, and no one called them out. You didn't hear anyone on the left, none of these progressive groups, none of these Democrats called them out and said, "You're dead naming that trans individual." They didn't say, no one said that. Even as everyone across social media saw the manifesto, learned about the information before the mainstream news media got to sanitize it, we knew the truth. And they still keep, even to this day, they're still pushing the same messaging. They're still dead naming it. And it's okay. The left is okay with that. Why? Because they're trying to protect their ideology, not the truth. That's the difference. And that's why it's going to get worse because they're more worried about the ideology than they are worried about the individuals. They're more worried about their ideology and the power that that ideology conveys than they are about individuals and how they're going to interact. I said this 2 years ago. I think I said this. This blind affirmation movement, this movement towards gender affirmation, and all blind affirmation movements, whether it's therapy or anything else, this is destroying our nation. This is going to have a negative impact. Let's assume, let's assume for a moment that there's in the last 5 years, and it's the numbers are bigger than this, but let's assume over the last 5 years, 100,000 kids were convinced either through blind affirmation, they had a feeling, They woke up one morning and said, I think I'm on this or that or whatever. And the parents go, blind affirmation. You are that, this, that, or the other. And now we're going to use Z, Zer as your names, all the pronouns, silliness. Okay, that kid. Now, you go down that path. Once you start down that path, you start a clock. There's a ticking clock. And we know for a fact from decades of data, of decades of research, the highest group of suicides are trans. Post and pre and post operation, trans individuals are the single highest category of suicides in the world. There is no group more likely to have a suicide than someone who's pre and or post operation. And that's why their numbers are roughly about 42%. There's no profession, there's nothing that's higher, has a higher suicide rate than that. And that means that there are a large number of individuals who've made the wrong choice. Now, in the past, they tried to mitigate that by having individuals live that lifestyle that they think that they would be part of for several years before they were allowed to transition. And many people in the trans community agree with that ideology, agree with that, not ideology, with that plan, that medical process, that you live as that other lifestyle, and then you decide, is that for me or not? Then you start the medical treatments to make that a physical change. And that the reason why they did that is to reduce the amount of suicides, reduce the number of people who are making the wrong choice because they thought that if they just changed their body, the world will love them, and it never happened because they were wrong. Now, over the last, let's say, 5 years, it's more time than that, but let's say the last 5 years now, we have seen this massive influence from Hollywood and entertainment, music, sports. We've seen it in movies, in video games. We have been shoved down our throat in schools, shoved down our throats this idea that if you change, you transition, you will be loved. And everyone wants to be loved. And some of these individuals are making that choice. Let's assume that of the 100,000 kids that were sold this idea that if you transition, you will be loved. And let's say that 1% of the time, just 1% of those 100,000 kids, and the numbers are larger, we're wrong. That's 1,000 kids that are now dissatisfied. They're angry. They're vehemently angry because they've destroyed their bodies. They've destroyed their life irreversibly. Because don't believe the crap, it's not reversible. It's not. Talk to trans people. Go look at the medical studies. Look at the operations and the procedures and the chemicals that are used. It's not reversible. It's irreversible. So talk to these individuals and you'll see it's irreversible. So these people have destroyed their lives. They've changed themselves forever for this promise of perfection, of acceptance, of love that they will never get. That's 1,000 people. And realistically, it's over 1,000 people per year for the last 5 years. It's actually more. It's well over 5,000 people in the last 5 years. But let's assume it's only 1,000 people in the last 5 years. That's potentially, that's 1,000 people who are angry at society, who are angry at the politics and the legislation and the blind affirmation, the system working, the establishment working to sell them a lie and to punish them, to torture them for the rest of their lives. And they're going to lash out. That's 1,000 potential mass shootings every year. And the longer that we keep pushing this gender ideology, this gender affirmation, the more kids that we get wrong. Again, even if it's just 1%, every year we add more kids to that wrong category. And you know, and I know that there is nothing in humanity that we have ever done that has a fail rate of just 1%. We're just not that good. Human beings just aren't that successful. There is nothing that human beings do that has a 1% fail rate. I wish we could do anything with that kind of a fail rate. Realistically, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of a quarter, 33%, possibly 40% fail rate. That's realistic. That's human nature. That's what actually happens in the real world once you get out of Harvard and actually deal with real people. That's the fail rate, which is why they don't do studies on these very same things, because they don't want to have to deal with reality. They don't want to tell the truth. It's not politically advantageous. So we have a real fail, and every year that fail rate is increasing, and we have done nothing. We have done zero to protect those kids, to help those kids, to help those young adults, to help those individuals try and figure out a way how they can live their life with some semblance of normalcy, of some semblance of cohesiveness. We're not even bothering to try. We're telling them, we actively see that the left leaning news media actively demonize them for daring to say that the promise failed, that it wasn't real, it didn't work, that they're not loved. They are actively punished and silenced and ostracized for daring to say that. People like, I believe it's Blair White, get punished on a regular basis, get threatened with censure and legal battles for daring to say the promise didn't work. Anyone who de transitions, they get silenced instantly. How dare you? How dare you? Don't talk about that. Be silent. Don't tell anyone. And now you wonder why I say mass shootings are increasing, that they're going to increase. They've been pretty steady from 1970 until 2010. The number of mass shootings in America on any given year has been consistent. It's been about 20 mass shootings with about 100 victims every year for the last 20, since the last 50 years. It's been very consistent. I know. But Mike, you just don't understand. There's over 200 mass shootings in America this year alone. No, they're not. No, there are not. There are gang shootings, which they count as mass shootings. They're not. Gang shootings are not mass shootings. Drug deals on school property are not mass shootings. They're not school shootings. There's when you actually look at the numbers, if you actually look at the events that they're claiming, well, this was a mass shooting. No, it wasn't. It was a Sunday on a football field that was empty. Sunday night in a football field, and there's two gangs, and they're making a drug deal, and then they start shooting each other. That's not a mass shooting, but they will count it as that because they need big numbers. Why? Fear mongering. Aren't you afraid? Aren't you terrified? Don't you want me, as your elected official, to try and find an answer? I'm going to make those guns illegal. Then they'll stop. No, they won't. It's already illegal. We already have the laws. We already have the restrictions. We don't need red flag laws. They're like, oh, well, we need something to stop these people from doing things. Minnesota already has red flag laws. It didn't work. They already have laws for someone who is mentally incapable of owning a firearm from for being from being able to harm themselves and the public separate of red flag laws. They already have those laws, and it didn't work. Gun control doesn't work. It will never make you safe. And now, because they know it won't work, they're saying, well, let's blame the video games. It's not that the establishment lied. It's not that gender affirmation failed. It's video games. The video games were the problem. Look, I'm 57 years old. I remember when they first started to say in the 1980s that, oh my God, it's rock and roll. Rock and roll is turning our kids into Satanists and they're going to go out and do violence. That's not true. Then they said in the 90s that it was rap music. And then they said, afterwards, they said it was rap music. Then they said it was gangster rap music. In 93, they started saying, well, it's gangster rap music. That's making our kids violent. Then they went to video games. Then they switched to, God, something else. I stopped paying attention at that point. And they picked different things. It's racist, it's sexist, it's video games, it's music, it's movies. It's none of those things. That's not what it is. The Minnesota trans shooter didn't go out and kill children because they played a video game. They went out because they were absolutely dissatisfied with their life, because the promise that they were made that they would be loved if they changed everything in their life failed. It wasn't true. It was a lie. And that is why they went into they delved into the world of video games and every other indulgence they could to distract themselves from the absolute hate that they had for their own life. And that's why we had the mass shooting. It wasn't because of the video game, because of gender affirmation. But that's not good for politics. That's not good for certain political organizations. That doesn't make more money for the establishment. So it has to be something else. That's the truth. Excuse me. Let me step back for a second because I was talking about Donald Trump and the voter ID, and I wanted to make a prediction. So, one of my predictions for this show, and I know it's Labor Day and it's supposed to be a holiday, and most people are going to see this after the fact. And it's going to be a short show, a short show today. But so, one prediction, and I hope, I pray that I will be proven wrong. I hope that politicians on the left, the right, independents, third parties will all come together. They will stop with the gender affirmation, the blind affirmation, and they will come up and make a plan to help that whatever percent it may be of people that they have failed, that have made either part or full transitions, and they were wrong. Whatever that number is, whether it's 100% or 1%, I don't care what the number is, that they will make some kind of effort to help these people. And therefore, those people won't go out and do more mass shootings. I want that to be the truth. That isn't going to happen. I predict that will not happen. You will never hear that. The left will continue down the road they're already on. They're going to keep doing gender affirmation. We already hear that from J.B. Pritzker. We already hear that from Gavin Newsom. We're hearing that from uh, all of the left leaders. They were like, no, 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 we got to double down, triple down. We got to quadruple down, more, more, more. Okay, which means the fail rate is going to go up and up and up. And that means we're going to have more and more and more mass shootings. And I believe that by 2030, we will start seeing 100 a year, each year, at least 100 mass shootings, trans shooters, 100 of them per year. Mass shootings across this country. where they're going to lash out at the society, at the establishment, at religious organizations of every religion, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, it doesn't make a difference. They're going to lash out against everything and everyone. And 99% of the time, it's going to be in a gun free zone. And you're going to see the numbers increase by 10, at least 10 times. At least 10 times. There will be 100 trans mass shootings per year by 2030 because the politicians won't stop gender affirmation and will not admit that they failed at least even 1% of the people out there. They won't even admit that. And so we're not going to put together anything to help those people. And so they have no other outlet. I want to be wrong. Clip this, post it, put a clock on it and timeline it and say 5 years, Mike, you were wrong. We're down to zero. There are no more trans shooters. I would love to be wrong. I'm not going to be. And I've made my case on that very clear. So that's one of the predictions I'm making today. The other one is in reference to two parts to Donald Trump and the voter ID. As much as I was saying earlier, I like voter ID. I think voter ID is essential to the United States. Mail in ballots, Donald Trump says he's going to get rid of that. Good. There is no benefit. Yes, mail in ballots should be like abortions, rare and infrequent. That's what it was supposed to be in the first place. The reason why we had abortions, the reason why we had mail in ballots was it was rare and infrequent and based on very extreme circumstances. And when it was based on rare and infrequent and extreme circumstances, it worked the best and had the least amount of people were fighting against it in that circumstance. Then we got 2020. Then we got 2020. And like the rest of the world, the majority, I believe it's 72% of the world don't use mail in ballots because mail in ballots are corruptible. They're manipulable. They're not trustworthy. Now, I know it's in the United States, but in the United States, we also have illegal aliens getting registered to vote, and we're being told that that doesn't exist, but yet it exists. So I don't trust when they say, well, mail in ballots. No, I remember, I believe it was the 2018, might have been the 2020, no, it was 2018 election for the New York 22nd District. Claudia Tenney versus Anthony Brindisi. I know both of them. I know Anthony Brindisi for several years. I know Claudia Tenney for several years. Claudia is my friend. Anthony's an ass. My personal point of view. But I know them both personally. Spoken with them both in person several times. In fact, I have both of their phone numbers, believe it or not. Yes, I have Anthony Brindisi's phone number. I've had it for many years. So in that election, I believe it was the 2018, it could have been the 2016 election. There were mail-in ballots that were found, or ballots that were found on a hard drive in a drawer that were found 1 month after the election, and they were counted. 1 month after the election, a hard drive, a flash drive of 1,000 votes were found in a drawer, and they were counted. That is broken. That's a broken system. And that's a fact. That actually happened. And it was a whole court case, part of the recount. There were several recounts. This happened. It's a reality. You want me to believe that mail in ballots, which are easier to manipulate, are more credible? I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And the world doesn't agree with that. The majority of civilized nations around the world, first and second world nations, do not use that as the primary way of casting a ballot. It is rare, it is uncommon, and it is extreme cases where you see the mass use of mail-in ballots because they don't work. It is corrupt or corruptible, to be more exact. So Donald Trump wants to get rid of the mail-in ballots. He'll get rid of that in some states, but he won't get rid of it in all 50 states. The red states will say, yep, we agree with Donald Trump, and they'll get rid of the mail in ballots, making them only rare and extreme cases and infrequent. That's going to happen. And the blue states will say, no, 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 we're going to keep it exactly the way it is. Why? Because it's corrupt and it's good for them. It works in their advantage. So that's what they're going to do. So Trump will lose on the mail in ballots. Trump is going to lose on another aspect of this. An executive order cannot change election law. That has to be done through Congress. Donald Trump says he's passing the executive order to force 50 states to change all of their election laws to have voter ID. He can't do that. It's not a power that he has. That is an overreach. That is something that must be decided by Congress, if not each individual state, because each state gets to make their own criteria for elections. Each state. That's why New York State has a set of rules and Arizona have a set of rules, and they're not the same rules. And they don't apply. They're not interchangeable rules. They have separate rules. Florida has a set of rules and California has a set of rules. They're not the same. They're not interchangeable. They don't work. You can't intermingle them. They're all separate. And that's something we have because of the 10th Amendment, and states have rights. It's kind of why the reason why we have gun laws. And every state has a different set of gun laws. And why some states have red flag laws and other states don't. You could have Congress put together a red flag bill and make a national federal law, which would apply to all 50 states. Then that would work. Then every state would have red flag laws. You could do that. But until you do that, every state makes up its own mind. And even if Donald Trump wanted to have red flag laws, which he's talked about in the past, and I'm happy that he has never moved forward with. But he's talked about in the past. Even if you were to come out and say, well, I just did an executive order, red flag laws are across all 50 states, that would not work. States don't have to agree with that. That's not binding. In the same way that a executive order on red flag laws would not be binding to any state, Donald Trump saying that voter ID for voting must be the rule of the land is not binding. States do not have to agree. The only way that could be forced to agree is Congress would have to pass a law. That's the only way. And that's not going to happen because Democrats will never agree. Democrats will fight against that all day long. And so will some independent organizations, maybe some libertarians, maybe the Green Party, definitely the Socialist Party, definitely the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, and the Democratic Party, and the Progressive. They'll never let that happen. So, no, this isn't binding. In fact, it's somewhat of an overreach of Donald Trump. Call it what it is. Let's be fair. Do I like the idea? I do. Is it Donald Trump overreaching a bit? Yes, it is. That's just the truth. Just because I agree with many of his policies doesn't mean I can't critique him when I think he's wrong. Doesn't mean that I can't critique Republicans when I think they're wrong. And in this case, I'm not critiquing that I think he's wrong. I'm critiquing it's not legal. It doesn't have the binding power of law. The executive order doesn't work because the president doesn't have the power to force states to do that. Now, the states can choose to do that. And again, I think that most of the red states, most states that lean towards Republican, are going to say, absolutely, we think this makes perfect sense because it's absolutely logical, because there's no counter argument that makes sense. This is the most fair thing for the public to protect and ensure our elections are as safe as possible. Why wouldn't we do it? And all the blue states will say no. They want the corrupt, broken system that we know exists now. We know it's broken, we know it's manipulated, and they want to keep it just that way. Because Democrats, over the last 20 years, are more and more willing to do whatever it takes to maintain power. They want power. They don't want freedom. They don't want. They don't care what happens to the rank and file members of their own party. We know that. Look at 2024. They didn't care. No one could debate uh, Joe Biden. Why? To protect Joe Biden, to protect themselves. When Joe Biden completely kamikazed on his own, then without talking to any of the rank and file members of the Democratic Party, they put Kamala Harris in charge. That was done overnight. Boom. She's in. Done. No argument, no choice, no debate, no vote. They just said, "Yep, that's it." The leadership said, "We decided this. Now go vote straight down the line. Vote all D. Vote all blue. That's it. Vote blue no matter who." That's stupid. That's a broken system that only helps the party and does nothing for the people. And Democrats, when it comes to mail in ballots, when it comes to voter ID, they're going to say no. They are going to fight tooth and nail. And the only argument they're going to be able to make to the public is it's racist. They won't have data to show that it's racist. They can't prove that it's racist. There's no data that's going to make it be racist. There's no argument that proves it's racist. They will tell you they feel that it's racist. They will tell you you should feel that it's racist. They will tell you it sounds racist. It's spoken like a racist. Only racists would say that, but they won't have any proof. They won't have any justification. They'll just have feelings, and that will be enough for them. And they will have the news media push out. And you'll hear it in the Huffington Post and the Young Turks. You'll see it over on Rising, Crystal, and Sagar, and they're going to say, you know what? I feel they're right too. Yes, yes, it is racist because we say so, because we have a feeling, and you should have the feeling that those leftists have, because their feelings are the right side of history, and your feelings don't exist. Your feelings don't matter. You don't matter. That's what they're going to say to you, which is sad because the media, if it's doing its job, should have someone saying what I'm saying right now. And I'm willing to go on to any of the programs and have a debate. You want me to go to Breaking Points? I'll show up. Want me to go on CNBC, Ms. Now, ABC? Want me to debate any? Bring any of them. AOC, Ilhan Omar, Anna Presley, Cori Bush, uh, Jasmine Crockett. Do you want to debate this? Fantastic. Pay for my room and board. Let me go. I'll come right on down. Anywhere in the country. I'll have the debate with you guys. Prove me wrong. Come on to this program. I'll give you 12 hours. I will give any of those elected officials, any elected official, 12 hours to prove me wrong. Literally, I'll turn on the live stream and we will have a conversation. And for 12 hours, you can tell me how I am wrong. I've done 12-hour shows before. I have no problem. No edits, completely live. Just me. I'm one man. I don't have a team. It's just you'll be debating against me by myself. No team, no crew. I'm poor. And it'll be against a member of Congress and their congressional team and their Democrat National Party resources and all of their people, dozen people, and that candidate against me. Let's debate this. That's fair odds. That's what I think is fair odds. It'll take Jasmine Crockett and her entire election team. It'll take her entire congressional team. It'll take resources from the Democratic National Committee to debate me by myself to justify how voter ID laws are racist. And she won't do it. 12 to 1. That's at least 12 people versus just one man. She won't do it because they can't prove it. They have no proof. But they will succeed in going to a courtroom, even with a Republican judge, even if they go to the Supreme Court, they will win. Donald Trump will lose. This executive order will not work. I would like it to. Again, I want it to work. I think it's fantastic. It's going to go through the court system. It's being sued right now. And in between Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer saying it's racist, but not explaining how it's racist, they're going to say it's racist, it's racist. You know, black people, they can't do things for themselves. That's racist. The black people don't have the money. That's racist. They're going to tell you how racist someone else is for doing what Democrats are saying, which makes no sense. And then they're going to sue. There's going to be an injunction, several injunctions across the country, and it'll go to the Supreme Court. It'll be in several cases, and they'll the Trump administration will lose. It's going to lose because the president, no matter which president, even when they're right on the concept, do not get the ability to make law, even when they are right. Trump is right about voter ID. Trump is right about mail-in ballot abuses. He's right, and he can't do this executive order. If Congress is paying attention at all, they should be drafting legislation right now. The Republicans should put together a bill, really simple, that says exactly what Trump's executive order says about removing mail in ballots, making them rare and extreme for extreme cases for our military, rare and uncommon. They should do that. They should also make sure you have to have an ID to be able to go and vote. That's it. It's a very short. You could write this literally in one page. You could write this bill in one page, two tops. If you really want to be wordy and triple space the lines to make it look like it's big and awesome, you could do it in 2 pages. It's that simple a law. And then vote on it. That would be the best thing Congress could do. So it doesn't matter that it's an executive order, it's actually a law from Congress in all 50 states. They could do that. They won't. They won't do it. I don't know. I think Republicans are out of their mind, and this is stupid, but that's what's going to happen. All right. So those are the things. And oh, the third thing you're going to hear, Donald Trump wants to go back to paper ballots. I agree. Paper ballots work great. I know everyone says, oh, but technology and I have my cell phone and I can go hit a button and do stuff and Uber. No, paper ballots work. They have worked in this country all the way up until the year 2000 with Al Gore, who wants to say that's a half a Chad. If you don't know what that means, look it up and go to ChatGPT, look up the 2000 election and Al Gore's multiple challenges, even going to the Supreme Court about the ballots being counted, read, re-ratified. It was a ridiculous process. It was lawfare. It was the early stages of Democrat lawfare, of just trying to throw lawyers and money at a problem until the Democrats thought they could win. And then they could. At the end of the day, no matter how much money, no matter how many lawyers they threw at it, they couldn't win. So they just said, well, then it was rigged. No, it wasn't. The Democrats lost. Al Gore lost. That's the honest answer. It was a very close race, and Al Gore lost. It happens. They just couldn't accept that. But okay, fine. And because of that hyper publicity in 2000, we'll never go back to paper ballots, but we should because it's physical, it is absolute, and it is definitive. You've made an absolute decision on that election. It is irrefutable. Everyone can look at it and see it and make up their mind. They know exactly what it is. It is, you can't corrupt it with a computer readout or in the way that the data is collected or that the way that the votes are counted. You can't manipulate it with a program. It's absolute. We've got the page. This is what the page says. Done. I think he's right. Never going to happen. We have too many kids who are too technological and they fear physicality too much. They have become too comfortable to do physical things. Therefore, we will never see physical ballots come back. I wish we could. But we have a generation that's too weak, too soy, too many soy boys in our society. And they just won't go back. They won't be physical. They don't do things that are physical anymore. Okay. So I wanted to talk about a few of those things. Final thing I'll mention, Elise Stefanik is talking about running for the governor of New York again. As I think I was one of the first people to come out and say Elise Stefanik is going to run for governor. The reason why Elise Stefanik stepped down from being the U.S. ambassador to the UN is so that she could become the governor of New York. She thought that if she stepped down, she's going to get that. And I believe when she announces that she's going to run for governor, some point in time after that, Donald Trump's going to announce that he's going to support her. The problem is nobody, it seems, outside of Elise Stefanik's district, outside of Congress, not many people like Elise, which is interesting. I've met Elise Stefanik. I met her back in 2013, 2014, matter of fact. I met her then up in Herkimer County. But I believe that Elise Stefanik, she has 49, according to the recent Siena poll. I haven't seen the Quinnipiac poll, which I think is very important. But according to a recent Siena poll, uh, Elise Stefanik has a 49% negative opinion, favorability. That's enormous. That's Hillary Clinton levels. That's enormous. Um, Even Kathy Hochul doesn't have negative favorability that high. I think she's at like 37%. It's enormously, it's ridiculous. So I can say again, and I said this to members of the staff of Elise Stefanik in the past. I've said this. I'll say it again. Maha. If Elise Stefanik isn't supporting the Maha movement for New York, she cannot win as governor. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I've met Elise Stefanik. I think she's a decent, a good member of Congress. I think she's an intelligent woman, very capable, definitely better than Kathy Hochul. I will vote if looking at the number of candidates that are out there right now, which is Elise Stefanik and Kathy Hochul. That's my two choices. I'm voting for Elise Stefanik. There may be a third choice coming up soon. And I would probably vote for that third person. We'll talk about that when that news comes out. But I can tell you this, Elise, you cannot win without having the Maha movement. And Elise Stefanik does not represent the Maha movement. Elise Stefanik and Republicans, the New York GOP, doesn't understand the Maha movement. They're absolutely abhorrent to it, and they cannot win New York State without having the support of the Maha movement. It's just a fact. It's just reality. Whether Republicans like that or not doesn't matter. That's the truth. All right. So I'm going to end there because I have to get over to go and meet. I got to get my ride, and I have to go and uh, I got to go meet up with my ride to go over and meet with Larry Sharp and Dion Powell. Again, I've interviewed Larry Sharp many times. He's a Marine, he's a personal friend of mine. We both live in New York. Dion Powell is someone I've interviewed uh, when he was running for office. He's the Bronx Conservative Party. He's with the Bronx Conservative Party. And I'm going to be meeting them both. I've done interviews on both. I advise you look that up. Go onto the page, whether you're on Rumble or on YouTube. You can search for it and you'll see my interviews with both those men. And I'll be going out there. I'll probably be taping this. Might go live. Not sure yet. Haven't made up my mind. Might go live, might go and tape it. But I will provide you some coverage of that. That's at 4 o'clock. If you will be in New York, in the Bronx, around Arthur Avenue, over by Fordham Road, at the Yoba Yop, YOB City restaurant. That's on Arthur Avenue. You can come and join us. I believe I have it in the post. I have a post of it on the YouTube channel. I believe I also have it up on the X. It's up on X as well. Come out, join us. I'll be happy to see you guys there. So, with that said, I thank you. I know it's a shorter show. I hope everyone got to enjoy it. I hope you're enjoying your holiday. It's just another working weekend for me. Please, because it is another working weekend, please do me a favor, like, share, subscribe. If you can, help me to pay my $3,000 veteran bill. It was 3,470. It was that, but thanks to people like Kintsugi and Peace Logic and the Grimm family, they helped me drop that down to now it's only 3,000. I'm paying as we go. We want to try and get it down from 3,000 to pay it off. I can use your help. So you can do that with PayPal. It's in the description. And I'll appreciate that. Or you can join my Patreon. It's $1.50 per month. That's dirt cheap. And I give more content, more interesting entertainment than Disney Plus. and I cost $1.50 versus their 20. I think it's a better deal. But even if you don't do any of that, like, share, subscribe, because I that helps, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I want you to be well, folks. Go out, enjoy the holiday, and I will be with you very, very soon.